Hello, I'm Bob Harris. Welcome to Duraamen's educational series for industrial and decorative concrete flooring systems. It seems like the trends these days, especially in high-rise apartments or loft apartments, is to have concrete not only on the floors, but oftentimes Duraamen gets requests, hey, what can we do for walls? And so if you're already in the apartment and you're possibly considering Skraffinoing the floor, why not make a seamless transition and use the Skraffino right up the wall? So the purpose of this video is we're going to demonstrate Skraffino applications going vertical, as you see on our little mock-up of a wall right here. A few considerations if you're going to use Skraffino vertically. Number one, the drywall has to be sound, so you want to make sure that it's structurally sound, that there's no deflection. And you may need to tighten up the drywall with some additional screws. And obviously here is the seam where two pieces of drywall meet, and so one of the things that we need to be concerned about is this transition flush? So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll take an orbital sander or a palm sander, maybe with a 100 grit sandpaper, and I'll just buzz over this edge to make sure we have a flat surface. From there, what we're going to do is we're going to use a fiber tape, and we're going to run the fiber tape to help reinforce this seam, and then we're going to use a Duraamen thin set material, like a feather finish material, which is cement based, and we'll skim coat right over the seams. I also like to, while I have the feather finish type material mixed up, I like to go ahead and just hit all of our little screw heads before the application of the Skraffino. Just butter it up and make sure, that way we won't get them transmitting through in our final coats. So once we've done that, what we need to do is make sure there's no hard edges from our feather finish. So I'll either take a margin trowel and scrape the edge or sand the edge so this is all smooth. The next step we'll do is apply 2 coats of CP1000 as a primer. Drywall by nature is very porous, and what we want to do is completely seal off the surface so when we apply the Skraffino, the liquid doesn't absorb into the wall. So we need to completely seal off the surface, and we'll do that with 2 applications of CP1000. Before we get busy and start mixing our feather finish, oftentimes they are asked, what about bathrooms? How can you address bathrooms? And certainly all of the same rules apply that I just talked about, but the only difference is you need to use what's called a green board, which is a waterproofed backer board. So for super important, if you're going to have any surfaces that's going to be around water, like a shower stall, for example, this board needs to be a waterproof board. But then from there, all other application techniques and preparation techniques apply, like we're showing you here. One last thing, you'll find in the drywall sections on corner edges, you can use little reinforcing strips like this just to make sure that the corners, and then we'll just run the Skraffino right up over this seam just to reinforce your wall edges. Okay, with that, we're going to start mixing our feather finish and applying our fiberglass reinforcement tape over the seam. Okay, we're off to the side here mixing our feather finish, which is the noise you hear. So we're getting ready to apply our fiberglass mesh tape. Okay. Several ways that you can apply the material. This is what's called a hawk, which is traditional. You can either just take it right out of the bucket, or you can simply put some on your hawk here. And then you can use either a standard trowel or a duckbill trowel here. pushing it pretty aggressively into the seam. We want the material to get into the seam of the drywall. So you can see how aggressively I'm pushing. I'm not worrying too much about the outer seam right here. I'll come back and feather it in later. While I have the time, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and hit these little drywall screw heads so those don't come back through our finished Skraffino surface. Once this is dry, I'll scrape it all level. The important thing is to get the mud up on the wall. Okay, just get it up there, and then we can always come back and refine and clean and burnish. Okay, our feather finish has had roughly 1 hour to dry. It's not a bad idea to make sure we have a seamless transition here. You can use an orbital sander with a 100 grit just to feather out these seams so that when we apply our first application of Skraffino, you don't see this translating through. So our next step is to apply CP1000. Now, I mentioned already in the opening that drywall by nature is very porous. So this is going to require multiple coats simultaneously. So we'll go ahead and apply our first coat of CP1000. Probably only wait as little as 30 minutes, apply a second coat to completely seal it off, and it's not a bad idea to let that dry for 8 hours, and then just prior to your first application of Skraffino regular, apply a third coat. All we're trying to do is make sure this is completely sealed off. It really doesn't matter how you apply the CP1000. Some people will just use a traditional 3-inch chip brush and just start brushing it on. Some people will roll it, okay? Of course, rolling it's a mess if you're in a finished environment. You have to really be very careful to protect your surrounding areas. I like spraying it, so it's fast, it's easy. Turn the pressure down a little bit. This could very easily be followed up with a dry rolling, just a back roll, just if there was any drips. But you can see how fast and consistent it puts it on. So we're going to continue to apply our first coat of CP1000 here. We're getting ready to apply our first coat of Skraffino regular. We're using a white base. We've tinted it with Iron Mountain Color Fast pigment. It's a beautiful gray. To recap what we've done, we've thin set all of our feather finished all of our seams and our drywall screw heads. We've primed 3 times. So the first application of primer was followed by the second roughly 1 hour later, and then of course in a real world setting you want to wait a minimum of 8 hours, come back and apply that third coat of CP1000, which is where we're at right now. It's no longer tacky at all. Relative to getting the material on the wall, it really doesn't matter how you get it on the wall, just get it on the wall as fast as you can. You can use a 1/2 inch or a 3/8 inch nap roller, and you can dip and roll the material onto the wall. But as you can imagine, that's very messy. A lot of the material's falling off. Some people will put it in a little mortar tray and just simply trowel it up on the wall. I find that using a hopper gun, air-driven hopper gun, and spraying it on the wall really gets it on quickly, okay? So, like we've talked about in past videos, Skraffino for a floor, the mixed ratio is about 4.6 liters of CP1000 for a full unit or a full bucket of Skraffino regular. We're going to back off on that, on the liquid requirement. That's just a little bit too wet. So we're going to go down to about 3.8 liters. So your range is anywhere between 3.7 liters to 4.2 liters, somewhere in that range. But we're backing off just because we want it to stick to the wall. So we're going to go ahead and give it a mix real quick. Material's been mixing. It's already been mixed, but we're just going to give it one last quick spin. Perfect. Awesome. Come on over. I'm going to put it in a hopper gun. Now you would need to, if you're working in a finished environment inside, you would need to mask everything, all right? Because it is kind of a messy process. All right. That's good. Thank you. All right, good deal. All right, starting from nice on the bottom, we're going to make a nice trowel pass up. Beautiful. Very nice, great color. Okay, so that first application went on real nice. You can see here we're a little light, so you can always steal with your trowel where it's a little heavy. Come on over here. See all that? And get all these up here too. On the side, fill any little area that needs material.